She was the kind of woman who could make an entire room laugh, with one line, a raspy voice, a sharp tongue, and a presence that demanded attention. Selma Diamond wasn't glamorous, and she didn't try to be. She was real, she was witty, she was the kind of comedian who didn't need a punchline. Her existence was the punchline. But behind that gravelly laugh and fearless humor lay a truth that few ever saw. Because while she made millions laugh, she was slowly dying in silence. And when the end finally came, it didn't just take one of comedy's greats, it changed lives forever. Selma Diamond's name may not echo through Hollywood like Lucille Ball or Carol Burnett, but in the world of television comedy, she was a legend, not because she demanded the spotlight, but because she built it. For nearly 4 decades, she was the hidden architect behind some of the funniest shows in American history. She was the voice behind the curtain, the pen that gave men their punchlines. And when she finally stepped in front of the camera, audiences saw what insiders had always known, that Selma wasn't just funny, she was unforgettable. Her story begins long before the bright lights of Night Court. Born in London, Ontario in 1920, Selma's childhood was shaped by the Great Depression. Her family later moved to Canada's prairies, where laughter became her weapon against hardship. She was quick, sarcastic, and unafraid to speak her mind, a rare combination for a young girl at the time. When she moved to New York, she didn't arrive with fame or fortune. She came armed only with her wit and a typewriter. In a world where women were secretaries, Selma wanted to be a writer, and that determination would make her one of the most groundbreaking figures in television comedy. Her early years were a battle of persistence. She sent joke after joke to newspaper columns, sometimes earning only a few dollars a week. But one of her jokes caught the attention of radio producers, and soon she was writing sketches for some of the biggest comedy shows in the 1940s. Her big break came when she joined Sid Caesar's legendary Your Show of Shows writing team, a powerhouse lineup that included Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, and Neil Simon. In that smoke-filled writer's room, Selma wasn't just keeping up with the boys, she was outpacing them. She was known for her razor-sharp timing, her ability to twist the ordinary into something hilarious, and her refusal to be underestimated. Carl Reiner once admitted that the character of Sally Rogers on The Dick Van Dyke Show, the quick-witted female comedy writer, was inspired by Selma herself. That alone was proof of her influence. But despite her behind-the-scenes success, Selma wanted more than to write for others. She wanted to perform. She had spent decades crafting the laughs of others, and now she wanted to share her own. By the time Night Court came along in 1984, Selma was 64, an age when most actresses, especially women in Hollywood, were told their time was over. But Selma had never listened to rules. The show's creator, Reinhold Weege, knew her reputation and wrote a role specifically for her, Selma Hacker, the tough, chain-smoking bailiff with a deadpan sense of humor and a heart of gold. It wasn't just a character, it was Selma herself, mirrored on screen. Every joke, every sarcastic glance, every growl of frustration came from the same place that had fueled her comedy career, brutal honesty. Audiences loved her. In a cast full of eccentric characters, Selma stood out without even trying. She didn't have to shout or perform, she just was. Her lines cut through every scene with surgical precision, the kind of humor that came from someone who'd seen too much and still found a reason to laugh. It was her breakout role, her long-overdue spotlight, and in those brief 2 seasons, she became a television icon. But what fans didn't see was that Selma was already battling a far more dangerous opponent than any scripted courtroom chaos. Her long-time smoking habit, a common fixture of comedy rooms and late-night writing sessions, had left her with advanced lung disease. Behind the laughter, she was struggling to breathe. Those close to her said she would cough between takes, sometimes hiding her pain with jokes. Yet, like the professional she'd always been, Selma refused to let weakness define her. By early 1985, her health began to deteriorate rapidly. She was in and out of hospitals, sometimes disappearing from the set without explanation. Few outside her closest circle knew how serious it was. She didn't want pity, she wanted to work. But when the call finally came, when doctors told her that her lungs were failing, even Selma couldn't write her way out of it. On May 13, 1985, Selma Diamond passed away at just 64 years old. The cause? Complications from lung disease. The news stunned her castmates and fans. Just like that, the laughter that had filled the courtroom of Night Court turned into silence. The cast was devastated. Harry Anderson, the show's charming judge, reportedly broke down on set. Markie Post, who was preparing to join the series, later said that everyone felt the weight of it, the loss of someone who had just begun to shine. Even more heartbreaking, Selma had no family by her side when she passed. Her final moments were quiet, too quiet for a woman whose entire life had been filled with laughter. But her story didn't end there, because what happened after her death was something even Selma couldn't have written. Her passing became a wake-up call for everyone around her. According to reports from the Orlando Sentinel, Selma's death deeply affected her colleagues on Night Court. Markie Post revealed that several of them, including Harry Anderson, John Larroquette, and producer Reinhold Weig, made a life-changing decision the day Selma died. They quit smoking. Cold turkey. No hesitation. They realized that the woman who had spent her life making others laugh had died from a habit that was slowly killing them too. It was as if Selma's final act, her unintentional farewell, was to save the people she'd worked with. Harry Anderson would later say that quitting that day was one of the hardest but most important choices of his life. And while he himself would pass away years later at 65 from unrelated health issues, the years he gained may well have been because of her. John Larroquette too gave credit to Selma for being the reason he stopped smoking, a change that decades later likely kept him alive. Selma Diamond's death wasn't just the end of a career, it was the beginning of change. In an industry where fame fades and faces are forgotten, her influence lived on not through awards or ratings, but through lives she unknowingly saved. Still, it's impossible to ignore the tragedy of it all. The irony of a woman whose quick wit gave joy to millions, dying alone, her laughter replaced by silence. But maybe that's what made Selma so human, the way she carried pain and humor side by side. She never separated the two. She understood that laughter wasn't just about jokes, it was about survival. And in her own way she survived longer than most. When her castmates returned to Night Court after her death, they honored her the only way they knew how, with laughter. Her character, Selma Hacker, was written out of the show, her passing acknowledged in a quiet, dignified moment that left fans heartbroken. They replaced her with another bailiff, Florence Hallop, another older actress with a similar sharp wit. But in a cruel twist of fate, Hallop too would pass away a year later from lung cancer. It was as though the role itself had been cursed by smoke, a haunting reminder of how deadly the addiction could be. After the loss of two beloved actresses in such a short span, the producers of Night Court took drastic action. They banned smoking from the set entirely. No more cigarettes in dressing rooms, no more ashtrays backstage. What had once been a cloud-filled environment of laughter and tobacco now became a place of awareness and respect. In her absence, Selma had left behind a legacy that saved lives, and that was perhaps her greatest punchline of all. Even her gravestone carries her signature wit. Etched in simple letters, it reads, "Selma Diamond, a very funny lady." It's a perfect epitaph for a woman who never needed grandeur or fame to make an impact. Her humor was her immortality, and her influence rippled far beyond her years. For those who worked with her, the lessons she left behind weren't just about comedy, they were about living. About knowing when to stop before it's too late, about finding meaning in the moments between jokes. Today, Night Court remains a classic, with reruns keeping the memory of its golden era alive. And while new generations may not immediately recognize her name, every time someone laughs at a sharp, fearless woman on TV, they're hearing echoes of Selma Diamond. Her spirit, unfiltered, unapologetic, and utterly original, helped pave the way for every woman who dared to be funny in a man's world. In Hollywood, fame is fleeting, legacies fade, but the impact of one woman's honesty and the ripple effect of her life still endures. Selma Diamond didn't just make people laugh, she made them change. She wasn't the kind of star that headlines remember, but she was the kind of soul that stories never forget. They called her a very funny lady. But the truth is, she was more than funny. She was fearless, she was flawed, she was real, and even in death, she made the world just a little bit better. What part of Selma Diamond's story shocked you the most, her hidden pain, or the way her passing transformed those around her? And if you thought this story was emotional, wait until you see what happened to another comedy legend, whose final laugh came with an unexpected twist.